As we have the new Chief Secretary to the Treasury. We say hello, good morning, and congratulations, Darren Jones.
Good morning. Thanks so much.
Darren, we all know, no matter who we interview politically, that there's no money around. But what do you're in there, you're in a position, and Rachel Reeves will be talking about this today. Where is there money? Where is there a bit of money for wriggle room?
Well, look, the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, will set out today in her speech on growth that is the route to sustainable public finances. If the UK had grown at the average rate of other wealthy countries over the past 14 years, this year alone we would have another £50 billion of money to spend on public services. That's the consequence of the chaos that we've experienced with the Conservatives, the economy falling into recession or bumping along the bottom. So the Chancellor will set out today some strong, immediate interventions to be able to kickstart growth in the economy while setting out the direction of travel this Labour government will take, with growth being our first and most important mission, so that we can get the public finances back onto a sustainable footing.
But you've set such tight fiscal rules for yourselves in the campaign, and you've made these pledges, no tax rises for working people, VAT, national insurance, income tax, that all of your eggs, really, all of your hopes for growth seem to be on this house building and infrastructure plan. And there'll be people saying, well, hang on a minute, you've got these grey belt areas that have been designated or have yet to be designated by local councils. Where's the incentive for these developers to build all these houses when they're actually quite difficult sites to develop, and you want 50% of those to actually be affordable housing? I mean, the question I suppose I'm asking is it going to happen?
Yeah, so we've been working with private sector businesses and investors, including housing developers, for a number of years in opposition. And we know there's an appetite to invest in the country. And it's not just about housing, it's about investment in broader infrastructure, whether that's transport or energy and water, as well as the community services that we want to see across the country. But it's really important that growth is the focus, because the tax burden is too high on working people. As we said in the campaign, we want that to come down. And as you said, we made that promise in the campaign not to increase income tax, national insurance or VAT on working people in the course of this Parliament, and we're going to honour that promise.
Darren, there are some massive problems you have to face in some areas of black holes in spending. Prisons, one of them. We're hearing today that the Justice Secretary, Sabana Mahmood, has been advised that she's going to have to cut prison sentences, and maybe by as much as 40%. And that is simply to avoid an emergency situation where there would not be enough places, that she would run out of spaces for prisoners within weeks, if not months. Is that feasible? Is that possible? Can you see that as being manageable?
Well, look, it's right that we've inherited a broken prison system. The Prime Minister made that claim over the weekend, and he's right. And that's why my colleague, the Justice Secretary, Sabana Mahmood, is looking at that issue this week. We've got to fix the immediate problems, but we've also got to fix the long-term problems. We can't have a criminal justice system and a prison system which is in this mess, which is the mess that we have inherited, and it's going to be our responsibility to fix it.
Can I ask you about Tony Blair? In the appointment of Alan Milburn, who obviously served under Blair, and also Jackie Smith in Starmer's new cabinet, you get a sense that Blair is very much back. And yet here he is this week outlining lots of his ideas, putting forward ID cards once again, and that's been flatly rejected. Tell me a little bit about the thinking behind that and why.
Well, look, Tony Blair runs his own institute now, the Institute for Global Change, which puts forward policy proposals not just for the UK, but for many countries around the world. As with any think tank, we look forward to reading and considering those policy proposals. But on ID cards, to go to your question, the Home Secretary was very clear over the weekend that that is not the policy of this government. We will not be having ID cards, and that's the position.
Well, since you mentioned the Home Secretary, we've already heard that the Rwanda scheme is scrapped, and there'll be enormous pressure on the Home Office to tackle this huge problem with immigration. You'll be aware that in a huge number of the seats that you narrowly won MPs, Reform came in second. They'll be looking closely at what you're doing to tackle this problem. And the question is whether or not you've got the big idea to solve this. A border security bill sounds very similar to what was already in place, apart from the deterrent.
Well, look, we put forward our big ideas in the election in our manifesto, and that's the basis on which we were elected, and we will now implement those policies. The Rwanda scheme was always an expensive gimmick that didn't actually deal with the issue at its root causes. So the two things that we're going to do is, one, make sure that we're processing asylum applications more effectively, and where asylum is not granted, making sure that people are returned to the country they came from, but also making sure with our Security Border Command that we are starting to tackle the criminal networks who put vulnerable people on small boats and put them across the channel in return for money, which is illegal. Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, when he used to be the Chief Prosecutor, was able to work with partners across the world to tackle terror, organised crime, and he's been very clear that we can take the same approach to dealing with this issue, which is what our focus is going to be.
Darren, we'll leave it there. Thank you. Darren Jones is the new Chief Secretary to the Treasury. Thank you. And